Yeah, so I ended up interviewing with two FANG companies, um, and I got one rejection and one offer. And yeah, it was I was pretty happy with the result actually, considering the amount of time that I was studying and the fact that I did not come from like I know there's a lot of people out there that don't come from like a tech background,
Hmm.
but it was the same for me. And yeah, I'm pretty happy now with it.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Hey, thanks for taking the time to do the do this post interview interview.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
All right, man. Yeah, I guess it's been a while. I think the last when I coached you, it was like in June.
Yeah, I believe so. A couple months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So catch me up on what's been going on. Like I understand that you got a offer.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so I started studying around the time that we had the interview, which I believe was beginning June. And during that time, I mentioned to you, I was going through ebook. I ended up like reading a couple times some sections, and I kind of follow a similar, like a lot of your advices and similar path that you like described in the book. And I would say I probably did what like 6 weeks of like heavy studying. Like,
Hey, listen!
oh, sorry, and that was my phone. And yeah, so I ended up interviewing with two FANG companies, um, and I got one rejection and one offer. And yeah, was I was pretty happy with the result actually, considering the amount of time that I was studying and the fact that I did not come from like I know there's a lot of people out there that don't come from like a tech background,
Hmm.
but it was the same for me. And yeah, I'm pretty happy now with it.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations. If you don't mind me asking, what are the two companies that you interviewed with? I know Facebook was one of them, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I interviewed with Facebook and Amazon.
Hmm.
Um, they ended up getting an offer from Amazon. Um, Facebook, I I made it to on site, but it's weird because it's like I believe like I think you actually relate that in your ebook that for the Google interview I believe it was the Google that you said you're feeling like tired, you're being interviewing a lot,
Hmm.
and you just feel like you're not in 100%. So that's the same thing that happens to me. So I had one interview, then I had one day off, and then I had the Facebook interview.
Mm.
So I just thought like I was not on my best that day. Obviously, like um, I like some of the questions I found was there was one of them that I didn't do that well. Um, but but yeah, I interviewed with the two companies, and yeah, I ended up getting an offer from Amazon, where I'm at now. And
Excellent.
yeah,
Mm. Yeah, yeah, like that one mistake of like, oh, doing back-to-back interviews is pretty costly, you know. But oh, I made it
yeah,
before, you know.
yeah. It's I actually scheduled a trip, and I wasn't like I thought I wasn't gonna make it through the phone screen, and
Hmm.
they ended up like calling me later after I scheduled my trip, and I basically like that was like the last day that I could go for the interview before my trip.
Mm.
Um, and I really didn't want to like schedule after, otherwise I would be thinking through the whole trip about the interview, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it was like less. I was like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna do there. Um, and yeah, I didn't do well. I was like, you can feel like some days when you're feeling sharp, and that day I was just feeling pretty exhausted because I had an interview the next day. I was basically studying, which I don't really like to do before the interview, but I kind of had to. Um, and yeah, I feel like that really affected my performance.
No, for sure, for sure. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I want to first start off by talking about like your study strategy and what worked for you and what didn't. You mentioned you spent 6 weeks just heavily studying the for the interview. Approximately how many hours per day were you spending on average? What did your schedule look like? How did you manage like all other responsibilities you had in your life?
Right. So yeah, so I had a full-time job during the time, also as a software developer. Um, and I was studying approximately 2 to 5 hours, sometimes even 6 during the weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pretty much like I got in the routine of waking up early because I felt like I really worked better in the morning. So I would just like, let's say, wake up at 6.
Mm-hmm.
I would do some workouts just to kind of wake up and then study until like around 9. And then like at night, I'll just revise some content because at least for me, that's what work. I don't really, not really functional at night. So I was trying to do was typically 2 to 6 hours during like the weekdays,
Mm-hmm.
and on the weekends I would say 8 to 10 hours. So it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty intense. I was pretty burnt out by the end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I was like hardly taking a break. Like so yeah. So that was about it.
Okay, so by that calculation, you probably went somewhere around maybe about 100 hours of studying.
Yes, yeah, it was
Cool.
probably around that. Yeah.
Okay. And what was your study schedule like? Did you decide to cover topics like one at a time? Did you jump around? What resources did you use?
So yeah, so that was one of the advices that you mentioned, and I think I read somewhere else. I don't know if it was on Late Code. My like, I guess like it was really like a game change for me, and it was like focus on one topic at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I used to do in the past was just like get random Late Code questions, right, and just trying to solve them. And I felt like some of the concepts never really like solidify in my mind, and this time I took a different approach and was like spent like at least 3 days on like each one's. I'm not gonna say I studied each one of them. Like for example, I had like heaps really strong on my mind because I was actually using it at work. So I did not took like 3 4 days to study reheaps, but
Mm-hmm.
some other like data structures that I wasn't like really feeling like really that I was really strong about it. I would spend like to I would say 3 to 4 days like really like doing a bunch of exercises and like you know just like focus and them like one of them at a time. So
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. Did you use grokking? Did you use cracking the coding interview, or is it mostly leak code?
yeah, so the resources I used was grokking. I did the full thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up signing up for the dynamic programming. Um, and I did a little bit, but it was mostly like the regular one,
Mm-hmm.
rocking the patterns. I used I bought Lead Code Premium, but to be honest, I did not use much of it. I went through some of like the top questions for like Amazon and Facebook, and I also got that what is it called? That YouTuber. One second. I'll go expert.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, so I did not like finish his things. I watched some of the videos on the systems design part, but the main resource for me was grokking um, in elements of programming intervals. I used the Python version, so they had like that study plan in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
which like I did like most of the exercise in the study plan. Um, so yeah, so those are the main resources I used.
Okay, so it's pretty much in line with what I had recommended.
Yes,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
Gotcha. And so I remember when we did our problem together, I gave you the rotate a matrix problem, and I remember like kind of harping on you for coding before you even had a solid idea of what you wanted to do. and you basically were also unable to really follow through with your ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you feel
Yeah.
like you made a big change after that? What? Because I imagine if you made that kind of mistake during the onsite, they would have immediately rejected you. But it seems like you passed Amazon, so you're doing something right. What did you do after our session?
Right. So yeah, that design part that you mentioned during that interview was really like game changer for me because yeah, oftentimes I guess like a lot of people have this problem of like they need to start like coding something to think through the problem, and I just basically had to rewire myself to like try to design the problem first. And what helped me, to be honest, was even though I knew the intervals are going to be virtual, but to actually like write, have a piece of paper
Mm-hmm.
and just like kind of think through and like basically like design the problem first, run some problems. And I felt like after I was a little bit more, I was getting up to speed, I was able to actually like use Google Docs or something to like put my thoughts. But I felt like having a piece of paper or a tablet like helped in the beginning when I
Mm-hmm.
was like pretty kind of like rusty, you know. um and yeah, I definitely practiced. That was one of like the things I practiced the most was like, and I think you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned the book or you told me, but the coding piece is actually like 10 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
even less if you know how to design the solution, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and I felt that during my intervals because most of the time I was just talking through and like just chatting solutions. And like I felt like two of the intervals at Amazon and one interval at Facebook, they were not even like really looking to my code as much because I talked through the problem and I like explained my solution, ran examples, and like kind of like put some bullet points of how my algorithm would be.
Mm-hmm.
That they were, I guess that just sufficed by itself, you know. um I mean, I probably, of course, they probably wanted to have some code, but I felt like they're like, yeah, that's fine, I just coded. And but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I definitely bring that up a few times in my videos. I'm sure I don't know if anyone else really talks about it, but yeah, it's like it seems like you really also was able to find out for yourself that code is actually not the most important part of a coding interview. It's the whole setup to the code, and it sounds like it really helped you in a lot of these interviews you actually did at Facebook and Amazon.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're doing like the studying, does that mean that every single problem you did, you focused on design? Did you do any of like the pattern matching, any types of breakdowns? What was your secret sauce?
Right. I think I kind of like, I put some sort of structure in my mind that like um let me what was exactly what I was doing. So I think like the first thing when I was the way I was approaching was like making sure, of course, reading out loud and make sure I understand, and then like running some examples, which was like something that you wrote in the ebook and you told me during the thing too. Like if you're stuck and if you can't find like that a trick to like solve the problem pretty fast, like run examples. So I think like running examples was like the thing that really like clicked me, and like that's when I really started like solving more problems. And um let me think what else. um I also like I liked um like some of the, I guess, some companies use like, I forgot the name of like that IDE or whatever, Google Drive. Um, what I like to do is like put some bullet points and kind of like write just like the outlines of my algorithm and just like kind of start writing in between. I know some people like to do that, and that actually worked really well for me
Mm-hmm.
because I tend to like think about a solution and then once I start coding, sometimes I forget what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really helped me, like, just before writing code, just kind of writing a few phrases of what I'm gonna do. I know it's like something that's pretty simple and probably a lot of people do, but I felt like that really helped me. I'm not sure if I responded to the questions
No, no, no,
you're
it's
asking.
fine. I
Sorry.
think that I was kind of like asking what was the thing you really focused on in studying, and it sounds like focusing on the bullet points that you mentioned, or like the pseudocode before you actually go to write the code, so that way you have something to refer back to.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess if you focused a lot on that when doing your problem solving, and it seems like you once you did that in practice, it translated pretty easily over to when you actually did it during the interview.
Yes. Correct. Yep.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about like your interview experience. For Amazon, let's talk about Facebook first. So I understand you were tired that day, but very briefly, could you give us like a rundown of your experience at Facebook?
Yeah. Sure. Um. So there were like 4 intervals. And one of I remember the first one I did like really bad, and it was like that kind of like set the mood for me for for the next ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the fact that I did bad in the first one made me really upset because I was like, well, I bombed the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But um yeah, so I remember the first one was some sort of like, I think it was a graph problem. Um and like it was not like a lead code question exactly. So the interview kind of like was engaging with me, asking me about my background, and he's like, "Oh, you did some work with that." So, and he started kind of like making up this problem, and I remember like getting stuck in the problem, in the sense of like, I don't know. I'm saying it's a graph problem, but maybe the solution was some sort of dynamic programming, because I remember like getting stuck in some sort of like cycle, and I never was able to find this problem after.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember the next questions were kind of like more lead code, like similar. I think like 2 of them were actually on lead code
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So um, and yeah, so and then I had a system design
Mm-hmm.
loop as well, which was fine. Like I didn't mention that, but I also purchased the book. It's pretty famous, called Designing Data Intensive Applications
Mm-hmm.
by Martin Klepman, and it's a pretty good book. I almost finished it, and I felt like that helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the system design question. So yeah, um, I would say I really bombed one of the intervals, and I did okay in other 2 and did good in other one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm actually surprised they gave you a system design interview question. You're applying for an entry level position or mid level?
I was applying for a mid-level.
Ah, that's why.
Um, yeah. So, yeah, I got a systems design question, and
Hmm.
like I was, at least my recruiter mentioned that maybe it would be possible to get a down level, but I guess Facebook has a hiring freezing now,
Mm-hmm.
so they're only hiring like E5, I think, or Elf, yeah, E5. So they actually want people with at least like kind of senior or level.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted more of like an E4, so that's why I think also um,
Oh, that
okay.
makes sense. So it's like you applied for mid level. They kind of gave you a senior level ish interview just to see if you could hit that mark, but you didn't
Yes.
quite hit it, even though you did like fairly well on all the problems except one of them. But because of because of like their hiring situation, they just didn't pass you because again they were looking for seniors only.
Yeah, exactly. I knew would be very challenging because of that. Like they're only one E5, and I was like, it's a long shot. I saw some people that supposedly made it like with less years of experience, saying that Facebook don't really care about how many years of experience you have, but
Mm-hmm.
was pretty tough. I would say like pretty tough to um, impress the interviews. I feel like
Yeah.
because I think they've only been hiring like more senior people, So um,
Impressing the
yeah,
interviewer is like extremely difficult because chances are they've seen a lot, you know. And so, especially if you're applying for a senior developer role, you'll be interviewing with other senior developers who have seen a lot in their time in the industry. So, coming in
exactly.
as someone who is like new or just breaking into that role is going to be very difficult. You have to basically be a genius to do it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I
So,
totally agree.
So honestly, like even though you were tired and you had bad luck with the hiring practice, I'd still be proud if I were you. You know, like you held your head high, you did the best you could, and it seemed like you gave it a pretty good run, and you otherwise would have gotten hired.
Yeah, yeah. I from the feedback from the recruiter, it seems like I probably would have got at least like the entry level one,
Mm-hmm.
which is the E3. So yeah, that was cool to hear. But yeah,
All right, no problem. And so let's talk about Amazon then. How long did you wait in between Facebook and Amazon?
so Amazon interview was on a Tuesday, and Facebook was on a Thursday, so 2 days like difference
So you did Amazon before Facebook.
before. Yes,
Ah, okay.
yeah, that's that's why I was feeling good for the Amazon, like, and I was not feeling that good for Facebook, and I guess you know, knowing that they were wanting for senior, that everything just piled up. But yeah,
Dude, I'm gonna give you like a little bit of shit right now, but like that's the exact mistake I made. I can't you made it too. I don't know. I mean, I know you told me that at the beginning, but it's like, oh my god, it's just me all over
yeah,
again. What the fuck?
yeah. Like I had a trip on Friday, and I was like, oh man, like it's like the last day I could do. I could
Yeah.
either do like Wednesday or Thursday, but I was like, Wednesday is like the day after. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The interval. So, but yes, but Amazon interval, I think it's pretty. They really explain, like, I think it's out there, the information, but Amazon has a lot of kind of like behavioral questions too. What's
Mm-hmm.
like the leadership principles.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like kind of like every interval has a portion of like behavioral, and it was three um three like data science algorithm questions and one system design as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought I did pretty good. I mean, I I think the systems design portion of Amazon I did not do that well.
Mm.
Um, but I struggled a little bit, but overall I felt like I gave something, so it was
Mm.
not a complete fail.
I mean, you
And I was
passed.
like 50-50. Yeah, okay, no, maybe not 50-50. I was like 60-40. I was like, I think I might get something, but I'm not 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
but
mean,
yeah.
that's a pretty common feeling based on people I talked to who managed to pass their interviews. I don't know if you watch my channel, but the girl who got the second highest Google interview score, she thought she didn't do well, and then ended up getting like 4 strong hires and 1 higher score.
Oh, I haven't watched that one.
Uh,
Interesting.
Cause she's saying the
Yeah.
exact same thing as you, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, let's delve a little bit more into these Amazon questions. Were they still leak code style? I also know that the system design for them tends to be a little bit more generic, not necessarily asking you about like MySQL databases or load balancers.
Right. Yeah. So the systems design question that they asked me was one of the questions. Was kind of like was generic, but it was like, how can I say that? They wanted like a specific part of the system. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for example, where you have like design, for example, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But you can say like, all right, I want you to design only like a specific application of it. Let's say like the news feed or like, I don't know, the events functionality. So they wanted like a specific part of a system,
Mm-hmm.
which was in the beginning was easy, but they came up with a lot of questions on like different portions. So for example, I've been doing a lot of like front ends. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, like they wanted to me to like really specify how many like instances of like database, what type of database, what type of schema, and they got like really heavy on that part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I felt like I was a little bit, I didn't do that well. And I was able to cover everything, like API, like front end, and like even some security aspects. But I felt like it lacked a little bit of depth in
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that they ask.
Mm-hmm.
And they kept asking me some things, and they didn't seem very satisfied with my answers. So that's why I thought I didn't do that well.
That's
Um,
fair. It happens.
yeah. Yeah,
But the lead code
but the question
question.
itself wasn't too like difficult, but like I guess because systems design can be like whatever the interviewer want, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
he wants you to focus on a specific part, you can like just talk 2 hours about a specific part. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and yeah, the other questions, I would say like they're most like medium, and like I guess I got two medium and one hard like lead code question, but even the hard was like more of like a similar to one of the famous questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I did pretty good because I practiced a lot, and yeah, I felt like that was the coding part was not too difficult.
Awesome. So you basically crushed every single lead code style question in almost all your interviews.
Yes.
Awesome.
Besides like one on Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, just that one. But everything else was pretty
Yeah.
consistently clean, easy, cut, easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. If someone like had done a lot of lead code, would definitely do well. Yeah.
Okay, for sure, for sure. So then let's move on to when you received your acceptance from Amazon. How many weeks out was that? And what were your feelings?
Yeah. So I got a call from the recruiter, and I was basically I was on my vacation, and so I started like last week. So it's basically like I just like I guess I could just have started whenever I wanted. I just like finished my vacation, got a 1 week after, and then just decided to start because here's the thing: I live in a low cost area,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt like it was a good opportunity to start working for a company in the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
and it like so far they're not doing like what is it called, like localized paying or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, I probably should start as soon as possible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, does that respond to your question?
Kind of. I was kind of hoping more for like what you felt during that call, like what kind of offer did they give you, as much detail as you want to give or don't want to.
Yeah, sure. No, I can give you some details. So, um, where I am right now, my I so you have a little bit background. I had like a little bit less than 2 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm living in a low cost area and was making six figure exactly, hundred
Sure.
thousand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now for the Amazon offer, I was offered like the entry level position,
Mm-hmm.
even though I applied for like a mid level.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it's pretty common for Amazon to down level, and I was a little bit concerned, but they offered me more money because of that. Like in sense of like typically the other offers I've seen for people like for the same level was around like 150 total compensation.
Mm-hmm.
I got 185. So um so like total compensation, of course, with like stocks and
So you got down leveled, but you basically hit the upper part of that band.
yes, some people that are like the level above L5 like get like the lower band gets like the same sort of compensation. So for me that was pretty good, and I like I was hoping for like for the L5 position just more because of like I know like the freedom of like running projects on your own, and like it's kind of like an ego thing, like you mentioned in your book.
Hmm.
You kind of want like if you can get higher, but yeah, I was pretty happy with what they offered. So yep.
Okay, yeah, because usually when people say L5, that usually means a senior level. But I'm gonna do a really quick look on Blind right now. And let's see what Blind says. They do it SDE 123.
So yeah, Amazon starts at L4. So L4,
Ah, I
yeah.
see it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, that's fair. Uh, so you basically you kind of just took it because you knew this was something that this was a company you wanted to work for anyway. And on top of that, the
Yeah.
money was really good too.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of wanted to work for Amazon, even though some other companies have like better names, but I just kind of like identified myself a lot of the culture too. So that like made me even happier to like, when they were able to offer something I was expecting, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Awesome, man. That sounds really freaking good. So, okay, so we covered all that. We covered like what worked, what your interview experience was like, and the results. And then now that you look back on it, what do you think were the hardest parts about the whole process? Was the easiest part?
Um, you're talking about the process in general, or the intervals itself? What do
Well,
you?
the whole studying thing, because people
Mhm.
get are in danger of like burning out. Some people like feel like they
Yeah.
don't have support. Other people feel like the studying is too much and they get stuck too often. What was that? What was that thing for you?
Yeah, I can say like the discipline is like it's pretty hard. Like there was like a post some time ago on Reddit, and I think some YouTuber post to one of these guys in tech about this guy that he passed some of these intervals, and he was tracking like his time on like an app, and that was kind of that's what's kind of like motivated me too, because like for me the most frustrating thing was like after like few weeks of studying, you just like get stuck in like sometimes like a medium problem, and you
Mm-hmm.
just can't solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty difficult, and what kept me going was just kind of seeing like the amount of hours I was studying, and like how much progress, and like just kind of having the mindset of like even if I didn't get it, at least the amount of hours I studied would not just be wasted, at least on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was definitely painful. Sometimes you just, some days you're gonna do really well, and some days even after like a few weeks of studying, you're gonna be like really bad. You're not gonna be able to solve like a medium problem.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes an easy one, and that's gonna really like be frustrating. But just need to keep going, and
So basically, you got hella tilted because you couldn't solve some problems sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. It's extremely frustrated. You know,
Oh, for sure, for
yeah.
sure. I mean, that happened to me too. When I was doing it, I just like, oh my god, I studied so much. Why am I not getting this problem? This should be so easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one day you go and you solve like two, three hard problems like pretty easily, and then like 2 days later you like get stuck in a medium and you spend like 1 hour and you can't figure out and you have to go and look through the solution. It's like it is a little bit frustrating, but it happens, you just have to accept and just keep moving on. You can't get stuck. It's another thing, like you can't really get stuck. I feel like it's better. I know some people say like, oh, you should take like 2 hours and really understand the problem. I don't like that approach. I like to, if I'm stuck in it, I just look at the solution and kind of like maybe just write it or something, and then like 2 days later I revisit or something like that. But can't really like measure like your performance by like if you fail like one problem and you think like you're you're not learning, but
Hmm. No, that absolutely makes sense. It's like getting discouraged by that one problem, but it's just like it's just one problem out of the sea of
yes,
thousands. So,
exactly, yeah.
what are your thoughts? You mentioned Reddit and YouTube. What are your thoughts about people who post their interview experiences, like on Blind, on Leak Code forums? Like, do you resonate with them? Do you feel like they overdo it? Do you think are they exaggerating?
You mean like just in general, like the like their interview experience, what I think about them when I see them?
Yeah, it's like some people will complain about how they got every single answer right, but then they got rejected, or they'll say like, "Oh, they got accepted, but I feel bad, or I feel good," like those kind of posts. How do you feel about
Right.
that?
Yeah, it's really like it really depends a lot. One thing I notice is like I think once, at least in my mind, like if you think you did well, at least for me, like I thought I was like 60% Amazon, so I ended up getting in Facebook. After that, I felt like I didn't.
Hmm.
So some people that when they come and say like they did really good, but they didn't pass, I feel like maybe they did not prepare enough, and they don't really know what they're judging them on. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I kind of have a hard time believing that someone that did really really well and they would just reject them like that. At least based on what I felt after my intervals.
Hmm.
So
No, that makes sense. It's like a lot of people who complain about the interview process and thought that they deserved an offer actually don't really deserve it.
yeah, yeah, I think so. And it's like I don't know. This is like totally personal opinion, but like I felt like tech is becoming really more competitive, and
Hmm.
companies like they have the right, even if like if you just like do okay, like they also it might not be enough for them.
Hmm.
And some people don't realize that, like they think if they're just okay and they just give like a some solution that they memorized from lit code without like good explanation and good like communication with their interview, they're gonna be fine. But I don't think so.
Hmm. No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's I mentioned there's a little bit of a Dunning Kruger effect in there, and so being able to self judge and self actualize and understand what you're doing wrong is the same skill that's needed to improve. So
Yes, totally.
yeah. So then, having gone through all that, having seen both sides of the equation on the experience, is there any advice that you would give to like viewers who are watching this, who are also on their path of studying to get into a FANG company?
Yeah, I would say like don't give up, like I was mentioning before. When you get stuck, just keep going, keep moving, because I also went through this process a few months, or actually like 6 months ago. I went through the same process, or maybe it was a little bit more. And I I was pretty frustrated because I didn't make it even like to an on-site.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like if you have the right material, like what Edbert mentioned in his ebook, and it's just like it's a matter of like discipline, and like you just kind of have to keep going, keep moving. Don't get frustrated. Just keep practicing, and you eventually get there. So
Yeah, and focusing on like the consistency aspect of it, or
absolutely, absolutely, yes,
yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
I think you talk about that in your book too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that you really felt resonated with you, as well. Being able to consistently hit these problems, approach them in a systematic way. Do you think that was like one of the biggest takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely. Like when we talk about the design portion of it and the way I was approaching, like, you know, I guess you have like, sorry, it's been a while since I read your book, but it's like you have like 4 steps,
Mm-hmm.
something like derive rules, back test, or something like that. I wrote those down, and I was like kind of like, following the beginning, like kind of like literally like following the rule until it's kind of like internalized in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. That's the that's the way to go.
So you absolutely just basically copied my approach and then internalized it, and it seemed to have worked out.
Yeah, I internalized, and after that, I wasn't like real like following, but I think like was just kind of like natural for me, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, and it didn't take you that long, like less than like 100 hours or less to actually get through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then is there any feedback that you would give to me, like for my coaching, like the anything I've written in the Google Doc or ebook, anything you want to like tell me?
Um, like I said, it's been like a little over a month, so I don't remember. I remember I really like the that part that you talked about your study routine and like day of the interval. That was pretty good because there is not a lot of people that talks about that, you know. You
Hmm.
find a lot of books that like talk about material, but I don't know, I kind of like that part. If you could even like I don't know, there's something else you could extend on that part. I don't know, I just liked it. You talk about, I remember even mentioning like supplement or something like melatonin.
Hmm.
I just like that part, you know, because it's kind of like you have a bunch of materials, but you also want to know like what are these people doing? You know, like do they work out? What do they do to like maintain themselves studying and focus? So yeah, that part was pretty good. It's just something I remember that I thought about mention as a feedback that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I could do that for YouTube actually. I think that's some kind of content, that is more visual than anything. So I could definitely expand on that there for sure.
Yeah, I liked it because it's something that not a lot of people talk about, and yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I'll definitely think about expanding that as well. I could even include diet as well because like one of the things I really, if I'm coaching someone, what I'll tell them to do is to avoid rich foods or carb heavy foods at lunch so they don't hit the 4 p.m. crash. You know what I mean? Like where they fall asleep and shit.
That's absolutely. I was on diet when I was in this process, just because if I didn't discipline on myself, I feel like food can like really mess up with you if
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I think like I'm not talking specific about any diet, but like I definitely think you kind of have to watch some of the things you eat and kind of have like a healthier lifestyle because otherwise you're not going to be able to sustain yourself studying for some time. So like for example, for me it was like cutting like alcohol,
Hmm.
um, obviously
Okay.
during the 6 weeks. So
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Well, if there's any other last minute shout outs you want to give or any questions you want to ask me, this time is yours. We still have another 15 minutes.
um, I think I'm good. I'm just gonna say like keep up with the good work. Like um, yeah, this ebook out there for everyone that's listening, like it's for free and it's like one of the best materials that can guide you to study. So yeah, that was it's pretty good material and like yeah, keep up with the good work.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. And congrats again on getting Amazon and best of luck in your career, man.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.